Hello everyone! I hope you all had a very happy holiday season, and I also want to wish you a very happy new year. Just something really quick before we get into the stories. I'm kinda sick while I'm recording this. Not sick enough where I feel like I can't record, but sick enough where I feel like I have to say something, because I probably am going to sound a little different. But yeah, just wanted to let you know if I sound a little funky, it's because I'm not feeling that great. And I also wanted to thank you all for 7,000 subscribers. Thank you to each and every one of you. I am so grateful. Like, words cannot even describe. So, welcome if you're new, and yeah, that's about it, guys. On with the stories. Let's get creepy. It was New Year's Day, and it was me, my mom, my brother, and his best friend RJ. We went to laser tag earlier that night, and we were driving home after it hit midnight. We turned onto RJ's street, and as we were driving, a random guy wearing a camo jacket ran into the street in front of us and ran back. "What a fucking idiot," my mom said. We continued driving until we parked outside of RJ's house and dropped him off. My brother went inside for a minute to see RJ's new racing game, so me and my mom sat in the car for a few minutes till my brother came out of RJ's house. At that time, a red minivan drove down the street with the passenger window down, and some guy yelled,
"You fucking bitch!"
at my mom. My brother quickly got in the car and the red minivan stopped, and the guy in the camo jacket came out of the passenger seat and started running for our car. My mom immediately backed up and drove away. We took a few turns to make sure we lost them, and we drove home. Once we got home, we were all freaking out and we locked the doors. My mom went to bed and so did my brother. I stayed up because I'm the night owl of the family, and I looked out my window near 2 a.m. to see the red minivan parked on our street. I tried to see who was in the car for a few minutes, till one of the people in the car went on their phone. From the light coming off the phone, I could tell it was the guy wearing the camo jacket from earlier. It's been 2 weeks since then, and I still see the red minivan around my house. I haven't told my parents because they're already dealing with family problems right now. It's creeping me out. Hopefully, it goes away. I will give you a bit of information about me before I go into this story. I was living in New Zealand, 23 years old. My birthday is on New Year's Day. I am now 28. We have a festival on the south of the North Island where you can camp, get drunk, and whatnot, and it can last up to 7 days. So anyway, this was probably New Year's Eve. People had been up for days, and I had woken up early and decided to have a shower before everyone woke up and used all the hot water. I took all my belongings I needed and walked first to the toilet. These ones were up some stairs in a portable building. They were sectioned for boys and girls. As I walked up the stairs, I heard someone call out to me. I looked around and saw a guy walking towards me. I stopped because I thought maybe he wanted to ask me a question about the camping grounds or something. He came up to me and said,
"Hey, I'm..."
blah blah, I don't remember his name.
"What's your name?"
And proceeded to hold his hand out to shake mine. I was like, "Oh, hey," and shook his hand. I thought this was weird as I was way up the stairs, and when I pulled my hand away, he held on and said,
"Can I get your number?"
I ripped my hand out of his and gave him a look that said, "Yeah, fucking right, mate," and laughed, and he looked offended, so I said, "It's 6 a.m., and you've introduced yourself to me while I'm on the way to the toilet. I'm not giving you my number." He shrugged and went on his way, or so I thought. When I finished in the toilet, I came out the door and briefly looked up, where I noticed him crouched behind a tree. He didn't see me see him, so I kept it that way, to scope out what he was doing. As I walked to the shower, in the corner of my eye, I noticed him run from behind the tree to behind a building they used to sell food that was closer to me. I was shitting my pants at this point, and the stairs to the shower were behind the building, so I walked that way, and instead of going up the stairs to enter the showers, I ran and hid. Then I saw him run around the building and up the stairs. I bolted. I was so angry and scared at this point, I kept running till I found some poor hungover boy who was spewing his guts out and told him what happened, and asked if I could just stand with him for a bit. Not that it would have been much help if that guy came looking for me, but the company was nice. After a bit, I had calmed down and decided to look for security as I didn't want anyone else to go through this. So I thanked the boy for his company and found one of the security officers on duty. As we searched the campgrounds, there was a hilly part that blocked one section from the other. We walked over it and found two guys picking up anything they could find to throw at tents, and lo and behold, he was one of them. I notified the security officer and said it was him and then noped the fuck out of there. I later heard that they kicked him out of the festival. So, potential rapist, let's not meet again. Let me give a brief introduction of what I do on New Year's Eve. Every New Year's Eve, my family and two of my cousins go to this awesome park in the beachside area of Glenelg, Adelaide. We have a picnic and play such a good game of cricket until about 11 p.m., which is when we all have dessert as a family. After that, we head to the bay and ring in the new year and watch the fireworks. I just remembered this creepy encounter today, so I want to tell you all about it. On New Year's Eve 2012, we were at Glenelg and had a picnic, cricket, blah blah blah, having a great time. Around 10 p.m., my cousins and I decided to go play on the playground near our parents. We asked our parents and they said it was okay, but to be very careful and to watch our surroundings, seeing as it was New Year's Eve. Keep in mind, we were about 8 or 9 years old. We started playing chassis. We were the only ones in the playground, which was awesome. There were about 4 or 5 of us on the playground, and the parents and 2 of my other cousins and my brother were still playing cricket. 5 to 10 minutes into our game, a boy, who was about 11 or 12, came into the playground area where we were. He looked lonely, and I don't know why, but something about him creeped us out. His eyes were wide open, and he was skinny with a bit of dirty clothes. We didn't think much of him, so we continued playing. This is where it gets creepier. There are 3 different ladders around the playground. I took the ladder with the slide, and then all of a sudden, when I was climbing up, that boy just blocked my way and stared at me with those eyes. I didn't say anything, but he did. "Can I play?" I then remembered the stranger danger thing, so I ignored him and ran off to my cousins. At this point, I was scared. I gathered them around and whispered to them, "When I was climbing the ladder, that boy just blocked my way and asked if he could play with us." My cousins didn't look surprised. One of my cousins, who we will call by the name Z, who was only 6 years old, told us that he came up to her and said the exact same thing, but she ignored him and ran off too. That's exactly what I did. I told them we should just continue playing and not worry about him. Let's just see what he does. We all agreed and continued. When we were playing, he was just sitting on the seesaw, rocking on it and staring at us with the most awful smile for about 20 minutes, to be precise. We didn't go to the area where he was, and actually, we kind of forgot about him until he screamed, "You're in danger now! Ha ha ha!" It was creepy. Luckily, we were close together when he said that. The chaser was near us too, so I told him, let's get out of here. We could hear running footsteps on the bark, so we bolted to our parents. We told them what happened, and they said we are not allowed to go back there. After this encounter, we completely forgot about him and went to play cricket with the others. As we were walking towards the game, my cousins and I looked at the playground to see if he was there. He was just blatantly staring at us with that smile of his. That creeped us out. Thankfully, we haven't seen that boy on New Year's Eve since 2012. I have other creepy encounters as well that I might post here, but I'll write this one first since it's the most current one. It happened about 2 hours ago, and I'm still contemplating whether or not I should call the cops. First off, you need to know that I live in a poor Eastern European country, in a big city but in a bad neighborhood. At least that's what I've been told. I've never actually encountered any creepy individuals that would want to do me any harm. Just your usual vandals and troublemakers, never anyone serious. I'm also still a teenager and live with my parents. But growing up in this environment, I consider myself to be quite street smart, a feature that has helped me whenever I was in trouble. it turned out to be very useful today. It was about 3 p.m. and my dad left for ping pong practice, and I knew he'd be back around 8 p.m. He usually goes for a beer with his friends afterwards to chill, and coincidentally my older brother and mom left to help one of my friends clean up their place after a New Year's party. I should have come along, but today I felt a bit sick and I decided I should stay in. In reality, I was very hungover, but my mom doesn't know that. That was probably the luckiest I've ever been. You'll find out why in a minute. So all of my family leaves except for me. Naturally, I've been home alone before, so that doesn't really make me uneasy at all. But having been a longtime reader of this subreddit, I take more precaution than I used to. For example, I check to see if the door is locked and turn off lights when they are not needed, and so on. The evening goes just like any other. I'm rewatching some episodes of Skins, the UK version, when I suddenly feel the urge to go get a snack. Just behind my apartment complex, there is a very well-known supermarket on which I can always rely on whenever I'm in deep need of a snack. So that's like a 5-minute walk. I put on my coat and flip-flops and I'm out. It's freezing balls outside and I can see the bright lights of the supermarket in the distance, but something was off. In front of the automatic doors, there was a small, robust figure. As I got closer, I could distinguish his face. It was this man whose face I've seen before. I remember him countless times roaming around our block of flats, but never actually thought anything of it. He was dressed poorly and was staying in front of the doors as if he was guarding them. I asked if the supermarket was still open, and he pointed at a paper which was clipped near the schedule. It said that it closed at 6 p.m. due to the holiday season, and it was 6:20 p.m. I let out a sigh and wanted to turn around to go home, but he told me in a very alarmed voice that there was a very close boutique next to the supermarket. I told him that I didn't need anything important and that I would come back tomorrow, but he kept on insisting and saying it's a 2-minute walk from there, all while staring at me in a weird manner. That was the first red flag, but I found a logical explanation in my mind, thinking that maybe the man was just very eager to help me, maybe so that I'd give him some money. That sort of made sense in my mind, but I was still alert. So I walked to the boutique and I took whatever I could find fastest, paid, wished the shop owner a Happy New Year, and left in a hurry. I was getting more and more nervous for some reason. I guess it was just my gut telling me that something was off. What really made me switch was the fact that I had been gone for about 5 minutes, and as I was passing the supermarket, the guy who was usually roaming the area was nowhere to be seen. At that point, I started jogging towards my apartment, all while trying to calm myself and imagining plausible explanations as to why the guy was not there anymore. I got to the bottom of the stairs of the front door, and in the distance, I'm short-sighted, I noticed a tall, dark figure entering the elevator at the same time, almost planned, the automatic light switch off. I desperately ran towards the interphone and clumsily got my keys out to open the door. As I ran to the elevator, it was still running. I live on the 7th floor. I could see it go up to the 3rd, then the 4th, then the 5th, then it stopped. I let out a big sigh of relief, but I was still skeptical, so I took the stairs. As I was walking up the stairs, almost laughing, I noticed that above me, the light on the 6th floor was turned on. That was a bit curious, but I kept on walking. Suddenly, I saw the light on the 7th floor turn on, and I stopped. I looked above and hoped that whoever it was going to the 8th floor. A minute passed, which felt like hours, and the light on the 7th floor was still on. I decided to take action, so I ran all the way up to my floor, and I saw something that almost made me pass out. The tall, dark figure was kneeling at my doorknob, trying to do what I presumed was to pick my lock. In these kinds of situations, I rarely get angry. I just want whatever is going on to stop. So from afar, I shout a very weak, "Hey!" And the guy, in an instant, turns around and stands up. I see him for a split second, and he looks fucking terrifying. Long black trench coat, a hat, and leather gloves. He smiles at me and reveals his yellow, unkept teeth. He fucking smiles at me. Do you know that stomach-turning feeling when you stumble upon something that is so scarily out of this world and wrong that you can't just not look, but you want to? That was that, amplified by like 1,000. I was shitting my pants, and to my surprise, the man took off running. Before he reached the stairs, he mumbled a
Sorry.
and got away. I was still in shock and couldn't follow him or call the police, or even move for that matter. I easily got to the door of my apartment and noticed a pin was still stuck in there. Yep, he was definitely trying to get into my house. Who knows what he wanted to do? My parents wouldn't be back for about 2 more hours, and I was not sure if I should tell them or even call the cops. Thinking back, I think this tall man and the man in front of the supermarket may have conducted a plan. It would have been all too convenient for him to catch me off guard like that. Either way, that's a scary thought. One thing is for certain, I will be keeping a bat in my room from now on. So much for New Year's resolutions. So tall, dark man that wanted to enter my home uninvited? Let's not meet. Edit. I've called my parents first, and while they were away, they said they would get home ASAP, and they told me I should call the cops right after they hung up. And they told me to make sure all the doors were locked, and also that they'd call a neighbor from the 2nd floor, a very nice old lady, to keep me company until the police arrive. I talked to the officer and explained the situation, and also showed him the lockpick, and he took it as evidence. I also gave a detailed description of the man from the supermarket, and I tried to describe the lockpicker himself, but that was still a blur. He said that he'll leave some of his men to patrol the area. I was lucky he was very nice about it. Police here usually aren't. All names have been changed to protect identities. The events in this story are all true, and to be quite honest, scared the living shit out of me. I may pretend to be tough and brave, but I'm quite easily spooked. This is by far the most creepy thing that has happened to me to date. I usually feel fairly safe in my town, but this one incident has certainly awakened me to the fact that no place is perfectly safe. It was this New Year's Eve just gone when my friend called me and asked if I wanted to go to the New Year's Eve festival at the beach with her and her boyfriend. Being the kind of person who normally just stays home and does nothing special for this particular holiday, of course I agreed. Every New Year's Eve, my town holds a festival at the beach in celebration. Rides and games are set up, bands playing live music, clubs hold late-night fancy dress parties, and at midnight, on the dot, a series of fireworks displays are put on for the public. Normally, thousands of people turn up, so the beach can get quite loud and crowded, but it's still a pleasant atmosphere all around. Before hanging up, my friend Jess asked me if I will pick up her and her boyfriend Tyler on the way to the beach. She also lets me know that one of our other close friends is coming along and that we should go straight to her unit so we can all walk down to the festival together. I tell Jess, no problem, and then go to get ready. In about a half an hour, I'm ready. I do not yet have my license, so I asked my dad if he would pick up my friends and drop us all off. He agreed. It only takes about 3 minutes to drive to my friend's place, and then a further 10 minutes to drive to my other friend's unit. My other friend Haley lives in a small 2-bedroom unit with her mother. The unit is right next to the beach, and it only takes around 5 minutes to walk down to where the festival takes place. When we arrive, she is already outside waiting for us, standing on the balcony and enjoying the sunset. We all file out of the car, making sure to thank my dad for dropping us off, and then head upstairs to greet Haley. We all hug and begin to catch up as we hadn't seen each other for a couple of months. Graduation, work, and life just got in the way. We all headed inside for about 10 minutes to grab a drink and catch up a bit more. Haley's mother came out and talked to us for a bit as well. At this point, the sun had almost well and truly disappeared, and so we decided this was the perfect time to head down to the festival. The walk down to the beach was pleasant. It was a warm night. There was a cool breeze to ward off the heat, and the whole area smelled of cotton candy, buttered corn, and warm donuts. We spent the first few hours going on rides together, and then we went and bought some food and sat down on the sand to eat it. So far, the night was amazing. As usual, whenever I went out with my friends, there was always a parent with us. No parents this time. It felt great. Felt like freedom. After eating, we went up to the stage where the live bands were playing and danced for about an hour. There were plenty of classics being played such as YMCA, Time Warp, and various hits from Grease. All in all, it was a really fun time. After an hour of dancing to music, the 4 of us decided to head back to Haley's unit for a drink of water, as we had spent all of our money. At this point, it was well and truly dark. around 11 o'clock, and the heat of the day had subsided to a pleasant warmth. We walked along the path merrily, saying Happy New Year to every passing group or cop. A few party-goers on the 4th floor of an apartment complex shouted, "Hope you have an epic New Year!" drunkenly at us. We laughed and wished them the same. As we walked further away from the crowds and the noise, the light grew less and less. There aren't many streetlights near my friend's unit, and we were soon engulfed in a soothing darkness with only the moon to light our way. It was at this point that I, for some reason, began to feel uneasy. It was too quiet for my taste. You know that feeling you get when you're being watched, or at least you think you're being watched? That exact feeling washed over me, and I subconsciously moved to walk in between Haley and Tyler, instead of walking on the outside of the group. I shrugged off the feeling after that, attributing it to the fact that perhaps my ears were just too used to the loud noises of the festival. They were, after all, ringing a bit. We ran into another group of people we knew from school along the way, and the feeling was completely forgotten. I had missed these people after graduation and immediately struck up a friendly, light-hearted conversation. We parted ways as we made it to Haley's unit block and climbed up the stairs to her unit. Haley's mother and her mother's boyfriend greeted us upon our arrival, and we all got a drink of water from the refrigerator before relaxing together on the couch. We were all a tad worn out at this point, and the fireworks weren't for another hour, so we decided to chill at the unit and head down to the beach around 11:45. We all joked around and had a snack, and then Haley asked if she can sleep over at my place. I ring my folks, check if it's okay with them, and they give me the okay. My parents love having Haley over. She's a very well-mannered person and likes to help out where she can. At 11:45, we all leave the unit and begin heading down to the beach. We only get about a minute down the road before Haley says that she has forgotten her pain medication for her bad knee, which she's supposed to take before bed. At this, Jess seems a little annoyed but reluctantly agrees that we should go back so that we do not have to make another trip back to hers at the end of the night. We head back, and the whole way Jess seems a little distant, like her mind isn't on the conversation at hand and she's focused on something else. I am the most quiet and observant of the group, so I notice her silence pretty quickly since usually she's a big chatterbox. I ask her if she's all right, and she replies, "Of course," and so I simply leave her to her thoughts. After retrieving Haley's pain medication, we head back out again. This time, Jess suggests we walk on the other side of the road where it is more well-lit and there are parents with their children on the playground. We think nothing of it and agree, as both Haley and I have poor night sight and a bit more light would be rather welcome. When we are halfway across the road, Jess mutters, "Don't look behind us." My first thought is that maybe there's a drunk with their pants down taking a piss against the wall or something, but then Jess adds, "Walk faster." I begin to feel uneasy and immediately obey her request, knowing that whenever Jess seriously tells us to do something, it's usually for a good reason. None of us look back, despite the nagging human instinct to look. I trust Jess. When we are across the road, I ask Jess what is wrong and what has her so on edge. She replies to me, "There's 3 guys in black hoodies following us. I recognize them from earlier." Earlier? I think to myself, puzzled. And then Jess explains that she saw those same 3 men. They had to be men. They were tall and bulky. When we came to the unit for water earlier. A chill runs down my spine at this, and I realize that my sense of being watched probably came from those men. What made me even more creeped out was the fact that they had waited all that time for us to come out. Unable to resist, I glance sideways, and my heart hammers in my chest when I notice the 3 men. They are indeed following us, and they have their hoods zipped up all the way to their chins. This would not be so unusual if not for the fact that it was a hot night. There was no need for a hoodie or any kind of jacket, and they were wearing bandanas over their mouths and noses. I could not make out either of their facial features. This scared me. Jess prompts us again not to look and suggests we walk even faster. We do so, despite the fact that Haley, Tyler, and I are all tall and strongly built people. I should mention now that I am an 18-year-old female, and despite my build and reasonable strength, I understandably didn't want to tangle with 3 big, unknown men dressed in all black with bandanas covering their features. It crossed my mind that they probably thought we were good targets. Jess was short and thin. They most likely heard that Haley needs pain medication. I walked with an obvious limp as I have arthritis in my right knee, and Tyler had his hands full, being the pack mule, as they call it. Despite Jess's instruction, I can't help but give the occasional glance at the three men, and of course, they continued to follow us. They even increased their pace to nearly match ours, and kept looking over at us. I think they meant to intimidate us, as they made it quite obvious that they were staring at us. I ceased to look after realizing that they could probably tell I was keeping an eye on them, and instead opted to use my keen hearing to make sure they stayed across the road. I wasn't fond of this, as they could have had a knife or gun or anything, and if they suddenly sprinted at us, I wouldn't be prepared, but I didn't want to provoke them by staring. I am not a fast runner, and my stamina leaves much to be desired. At this point, the path ends and gives way to bushes and shrubs. The bushland is quite easy to go around, but doing so would mean moving closer to the unknown men following us. None of us wanted to do that, so we all made an unspoken agreement to take the shortcut through the bushes. The bushland doesn't go on for very long, and it would take us straight to the festival where we could quite possibly lose the men. We head to the bushes, taking care to stay together as it is warm, and that's when the snakes like to come out most. Especially at the beach, it's Snake City. About halfway through, we all recognize the sound of dried grass and leaves crunching underfoot. Then we hear rapid and heavy footsteps. We all broke into a sprint, not daring to look back at that point. We didn't have to look to know the men were chasing us, and their confidence at going after 4 fully grown teenagers pretty much assured me that they were armed with weapons of some sort. We were not armed with anything, and quite frankly, we were all so spooked that we couldn't think straight. Our only instinct was to run as fast as possible. We made it out of the bushland together, raced across the car park, and slowed to a jog as we reached the crowds. We didn't stop, but as we steadily slowed to a hurried walk, I looked over my shoulder and recognized the 3 unknown men lurking across the car park. Moonlight glinted off the surface of a metallic object in the taller one's hand, and I immediately felt ill. We hurried down to where the biggest crowd was and gathered on the sand in preparation for the fireworks. Picking a spot between 2 large groups, we settled down and caught our breaths. Funnily enough, all 4 of us have asthma, which we often joke about, saying that we found each other and bonded because of it, and we were all panting quite heavily. Tyler and I have it a bit worse than Haley and Jess, and you can hear us wheezing as we panted. Soon the fireworks started, and we all calmed down enough to somewhat enjoy them, although the unknown men were still in the back of our minds. Our original plan had been to leave before the fireworks were finished so that we could avoid the big crowds, but instead we opted to leave with the crowds. We walked down the road to the bigger car park where my dad was going to pick us up, making sure to stay around people. We reached the car park and I called my dad, and he said that he would be there to pick us up in about 10 minutes. After hanging up, I sat on the side of the path with my friends and waited. 5 minutes passed and, bored, I decided to look around as there were still many bustling crowds making their way to their cars. There was a bit of a traffic jam too, as many cars were trying to leave at the same time. I looked across the road and realized with a jolt that the 3 men in the black hoodies were there, half hidden behind a tree where there was no light. Even though I couldn't see their eyes, I could tell they were staring right back. They knew I'd spotted them. The taller one discreetly showed his knife, waving it a little as if to taunt me. Then he raised it to his throat and made a slow mock slicing motion. I quickly told my friends and we moved to a different spot, making sure to stay in the light and to stay in sight of people. My dad arrived soon after and we all quickly climbed into the car. None of us spoke a word of what happened, and since then I haven't had any issues with anyone following me or my friends. It still gives me the creeps though. Whoever those men were, their intentions could not have been good.